This week on The Real Housewives of Potomac.
Full-grown woman who came into this group and misrepresented yourself.
Devil. Get your finger out.
You misrepresented yourself.
Get your finger out my
You
face.
misrepresented yourself.
You are the devil.
Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back. Today we're going to be recapping the new episode of The Real Housewives of Potomac, episode 1 of the new season, which is season 10. Let's get right into this. You guys, I have been super excited about this new season of Potomac. Potomac is my number one show. It is the first housewife show that I ever watched, so that's why it's always going to have a special place in my heart when it comes to the housewife franchise. I actually began this recap / review channel recapping the Real Housewives of Potomac season 7. So the fact that this is now my my fourth. Yeah, because it was season 7, season 8, season 9, now it's season 10. The fact that it is my fourth time recapping the Real Housewives of Potomac, it just feels like super special. Like, I feel like this sense of familiarity when it comes to Potomac. Super excited. So let's get right into it. So the episode opens up showing us the morning of September 2nd, 2025, which was about a month ago. So that was the day that the Grand Dame was released from prison. The day she was released. I do remember that day they captured her in her vehicle and she was waving. I had seen some cameras. I assumed maybe it might have been the news, but it was in fact Bravo. They captured this entire thing. So we saw a little glimpse of that, and Karen sounded pretty good. So I'm sure they're going to kind of tie all of this back in towards the end of the season, because I'm sure that they filmed much more than that. I'm sure they filmed her arriving in the house and everything else. I am sure we're going to see that. But then we go back in time. We go back to March 1st, 2025. So it's been 2 days after Karen's sentencing, and the girls go meet up at Gizelle's house. Now Gizelle is shocked, and you can tell even the way she talks about it, she's very shocked. I mean, can you imagine if someone that you've known for over a decade, a friend of yours, is all of a sudden in prison? You know, like, this is a big deal. We're talking about prison. That's crazy to wrap your head around. And I think Gizelle is very worried for Karen. She truly is, for her well-being. So then Ashley, she's the first one over. And as you can imagine, yes, they get there and they talk about Karen being in jail, but with some shade. They're quick to talk about, I hope she's in the elderly section of the prison and all this stuff. Ashley is also talking about Stacy, which, as we saw from the season trailer and some clips, it looks like Ashley is going to be super hyper-focused on Stacy with this whole TJ situation, which I'm sure, yes, I get why they might, they want to question her about it. But the fact that Ashley is going so hard on all of this clearly shows that she has no damn storyline, which, let's keep it real, she hasn't had one since season 6. So the fact that she's even been here for, 10 years? Ashley's been on here for 10 years. That is astonishing. So then Wendy and Keiarna get there. It was kind of funny because Keiarna asks Wendy, have you been here? You've been here before, right? And then Wendy's like, yeah, on the outside. We all remember Gizelle and Robyn's little reasonably shady event in the driveway. So eventually Stacy gets there. So it's all the girls from the prior season. Gizelle says that she kind of wanted them to all come together so they could just talk about what's going on. So she says that, like, every morning that since she's been waking up since the sentencing, her first thing that comes to mind is, wow, Karen is in prison. And Wendy says, yeah, like, it also thinks about that. And it's been hard to process it. Even though things didn't turn out the best between them. You got to remember what happened last season with Wendy and Karen. We didn't really get to see the downfall of that because it was, this whole prison thing was overshadowed by it, obviously. But even though that happened, Wendy still feels bad. And it's also been a little bit hard for them to wrap their head around, because not only is this their friend, not only is she going to prison, it happened super fast. Because you got to remember, the day she was sentenced, she went immediately to prison. Because I know that there are times when people get sentenced and they have some time to go turn themselves in to start their prison sentence. But no, she went right away. Like, we didn't see her until she got out. Now, Keiarna mentions how Karen is in a state prison. Like, the fact that she has to take showers with the other inmates, to me, that's like the worst thing imaginable. It's one thing for you to be isolated from the rest of the world, but you guys, having to be somewhere sharing showers, bathrooms, eating with other people, no, that would be the worst thing for me. Like, no, I cannot do it at all. So then Stacy's like, well, I can't help but to think of Raven. And then Gizelle says, yeah, I think about Raven and Ray. But at the same time, we have to be realistic. This was her 4th DUI. And she's right. Nobody is happy that she's in jail or that she's in prison. Like, nobody is like, oh, yeah, I'm so glad. No. But she needed to be in prison. Like, it wasn't 1. It wasn't 2. It wasn't 3. It was 4. And that could have probably turned into 5 and 6 if they had not checked her. So, as hard as it was for Karen, I'm sure, to be in there, I think that she needed to be there, and I think it was a reasonable amount. It wasn't too long, but it wasn't just a few months. It was quite a bit of time, so I think it was fair for the crime. And then here go Ashley again with the mean-spirited comment. She says, "Yeah, the Grand Dame is in prison. Thomas is Jefferson concubine." We all know what she's referring to. So then Stacy's like, oh yeah, Thomas is Jefferson's concubine. We let's never talk about Thomas Jefferson. And then Ashley is diabolical when it comes to being so shady and slick. She's like, yeah, we can't talk about Thomas Jefferson, but what about his initials, TJ? Are we going to talk about TJ? I was like, oh my gosh. So then before you know it, they all cornered Stacy about TJ. Because remember, they had just filmed the reunion at this point. And then out of all of them, the one that came in like the hottest was Keiarna. She was calling Stacy a liar and this and that. And they were telling her, you did this and you lied. And they were just going in on her. And Stacy left. And then when she left, evidently so, Gizelle and Ashley mentioned that they were recently at an event in California, and at this event, an actress spoke to them and gave them information about TJ. To be specific, the actress told them that TJ is suing Stacy. So that was that scene. So then we see 2 months later. So what I'm guessing happened is that they picked up the cameras to kind of get their reactions of, of Karen going to prison, and then the actual season began filming 2 months after this. So we see Stacy going into a restaurant, and there was this white guy I went for. I was like, who is this man? Stacy is back with her ex-husband. Stacy, they're gonna accuse you of paying him too. She's back with her ex-husband. She said that they went on a trip with their daughter to Mexico, and there was something about the way they just felt about each other. She says it just felt like what we have isn't over, so they're back. And in this scene, it was romantic. She kept talking about, I can't stop, like, we're giving each other googly eyes and whatnot. And they talk about, what are people going to think about us going back together. And he seemed, he seemed like a serious guy, kind of, I wouldn't say shy, but kind of just more, kind of like playing, he's like, my friends will always support what I do and this and that, and it seems to be working. So I'm sure we're going to see more of this storyline as the season continues. Then we go over to Keiarna. So Keiarna has a new condo, and her mom goes to visit her. Her mom is very, very pretty. Keiarna definitely gets her looks from her mom. Her mom looks young too. So they're talking about what's going on with Keiarna. So after the reunion, she broke up with Greg. And then some time went by, and I guess he was like, oh shoot, she's serious about this. So he then tried to rekindle their relationship by taking her to Jamaica, I think it was. Now, I really enjoyed this scene. I'm going to tell you why. Because Keiarna's mom was giving her some very good advice. She was basically saying, like, a man needs to fight for you. First of all, She's beautiful. Keiarna, she is the last woman who needs to be worrying about this. But even if she wasn't, any woman in general, there's no reason that they should be having this uncertainty of like, oh, I hope today's a good day. No, it should be the norm. So I really like that her mom was telling her, like, value yourself. Like, you're such a high value woman. Like, you deserve more. Hopefully she listens, because doing all this for Greg, that ain't it. Okay, so Ashley is going to have a divorce party, and it's going to be like a ballroom type of thing. So she meets with Stacy at a dress shop because they're going to have some nice gowns. Stacy says she doesn't think divorce should be something that should be celebrated. I low-key agree, but it is what it is. So Ashley says to her once they're in the shop, last time we talked, it was tense. And then Stacy says, yeah, I was being ganged up on. So then Ashley goes ahead and tells her about this actress that Gizelle and her talked to, and how she showed them legal documents that TJ is suing Stacy. Stacy kind of denies it. She says, I don't know what to say to that. Ashley says, are you really not going to admit it? And then Stacy's like, no, I can't admit something or speak about something that I don't know. I don't even know who this person is. But do you want to know the truth, Ashley? I've forgiven TJ. I'm not going to rehash about this imaginary friend and some documents. And then Ashley's like, she's not an imaginary friend. She's very much an accomplished actress. And then she name drops her. They bleep it, of course. And then Stacy's like, no, I don't really believe it. And then Ashley says, this is why people call you fake. And then they start to go back and forth. Ashley then asks, are you legally divorced? And Stacy says, absolutely. And then Ashley says, well, it's not on any legal databases. I looked you up and I couldn't find you. Your name never came up. And then Stacy's like, girl, you are a mom of two. You sing. Why are you wasting your time Googling? Which I agree with Stacy. And then it was kind of funny because in her confessional, Stacy says what she should really be Googling is a voice coach. Ashley was being too loud, saying, I don't like liars. So they argue, and Stacy says, you know what? When you get your imaginary friend and her documents, and you can come show them to me, then we will rekindle our friendship. And then she walks out of the shop. Listen, I said what I said. Could Stacy be lying? Maybe. I will say, though, let's keep it real. It's been about, 6-8 months? I haven't seen TJ put no text messages, no evidence of her hiring him for this show and paying him. Let's be honest. But even if Stacy were to be lying, is it really that important for Ashley to be doing all this jumping up and down and looking up things on legal databases? It's really not. It really isn't. Alright, so then next up is Gizelle. Gizelle looks happy. She's an empty nester. She's embracing living alone. She was sad at first, but now she feels very liberated. She says that she works out and she does her projects like her podcast and some other work. And she still has time to date. And clearly she still has time to gossip. So she calls Ashley. They talk a little bit about her party. Gizelle is going to be bringing her friend Tia to the party. And then Ashley gives her a rundown of everything that happened with Stacy at the dress shop. And Gizelle says, this girl is a liar and whatnot. I will say, though, Ashley has a pretty hilarious Stacy impersonation. Okay, so then Keiarna goes over to Angel's house. Angel is one of the new housewives this season. Personally, I've never heard of her, so I'm really going into this not knowing anything about her, but I gotta say, based on what we've seen so far, I like her energy. She has like a very, kind of like a nice spirit, kind of like a fun, like somebody who you can be fun with as a friend. Her husband is a retired NFL player, and again, this is just going based off what I see people. We don't know these people, but based on what I see, it looks like they're very lovely with each other. He was kissing her. They look very close. They used to live in Colorado for a while when he was still a football player. Now that he's retired, they've moved back into the DMV area where she is originally from. So we're getting to know her. She then goes on a little hike with Keiarna. She talks a little bit about herself. Angel and her husband own like this outdoor experience place in Colorado, so that's great. They're opening a few more. So she then asks Keiarna, like, what's up, like, with the friend group, what's going on? So then she says Gizelle and her are pretty close, Ashley's kind of just like there, and then with Wendy, things are kind of like weird right now. So Angel is actually familiar with Wendy a little bit. Wendy used to be her quote-unquote big sister's roommate in college. Wendy is older than Angel, so when Angel was starting college, Wendy was like on her way out. She was like graduating already. Angel does say that Wendy, what she's known of her is that she's always been how she is to this day. Now, here's the drama. So Keiarna tells Angel that this year she's been feeling some microaggressions from Wendy. For example, they were at the NAACP Awards. Wendy was there and Mia was there too. Kay was a little surprised to see Wendy there because Wendy had kind of been acting weird about not telling her if she was going or not. Also, there was recently another event where Wendy did not say hi to her when she was up there as a speaker. She pretended that she didn't see her. Now, she says that this, along with coupled with other stuff that she says has happened off camera, and let's not forget, I think she was very hurt season 8 when Wendy and Candiace didn't check up on her when she was sick when they were in, I think it was Panama. That was kind of hurtful, or it might have been Dominican Republic, I think it was. So it was, just a lot of things like that that have sort of been adding up. So she's just kind of seeing Wendy a little differently. I will say, based on Angel's tone, she didn't say anything bad about Wendy at all. But based on her tone, I can kind of tell she's not really Wendy's biggest fan. But we'll have to wait and see. Alright, so then it is the big day for the event. Ashley's party. We see all the ladies arrive. Gizelle arrives alongside her friend Tia, who's a new housewife this season. I like Tia as well. She's British. She's also Nigerian. And she's not just Nigerian. She's Nigerian royalty. And they have pictures. She's like a princess. I love her British accent. And she's just so elegant. I like the way she carries herself. There was a lot of people at this event, including Charrisse, the Rio Grande. I'm just kidding. But I will say, though, there is something to be said about the fact that every single housewife has sort of, I don't want to say kissed the ring, but kind of has had some sort of either friendship or some sort of acknowledgement with Charrisse to this day, even though she's not on the show anymore. They were introducing those new housewives to her as they were arriving, so she's still very much involved in this friend group. So Wendy's already making shady comments about Angel in her confessional, saying that she doesn't know her and that they don't run in the same circles. Not what you say, how you say it. So again, my theory is that they're not going to get along this season. When Stacy came in, she's saying hi to some of them, and Keiarna and her had this super weird energy, which isn't surprising based on the very first scene that we saw in the episode. So it looks like these two are also not going to get along in the rest of the season. Okay, so Ashley, I think she's wanted an excuse for a party. It was a nice party, though. It was, like I said, it was ballroom elegant. They all had beautiful gowns. She then makes her grand entrance. She gives a little speech about her life and what she's done. Then it's time for the party. So Gizelle and Wendy were sitting down together and they were talking about their dresses. Keiarna joins them and she says, "Hey," and Wendy just keeps talking. So then Keiarna says, "Okay, that's rude. I'm sitting here too." And Wendy's like, "Oh, I'm having a conversation with her." And Giselle's like, "Well, you guys can talk. I'll be back. So it's just Wendy and Keiarna sitting together. So Keiarna says to her, "I've been wanting to talk to you because I felt extremely taken aback by you. I feel like you have this thing that you do in our friendship that's phony." So then she goes on to explain, "At this recent event, I told you about an event that I was sponsoring. And it turns out the day of the event, I see that you're there as a speaker." And then Wendy's like, "What's wrong with that?" And Keiarna says, "Well, if you knew that I was sponsoring the event, what's the point of not telling me that you were going to be there as a speaker?" Wendy says, "But I hyped you up when you told me you were sponsoring the event, and I didn't want to make it about me." So Kay says, okay, but you didn't even say hi. Like, I would have waved. And Wendy's like, she's thinking, girl, you mad because I didn't acknowledge you while I'm on stage speaking? Keiarna then says, well, it's not just that, Wendy. It's also when we were at the NAACP Awards, when we get to the red carpet, the first thing you say to me is, oh, hey, did you do your own makeup? So Kay feels like this was shade. But she says, do you get where I'm coming from? And then Wendy says no. So then in her confessional, Keiarna says that she doesn't even know if Wendy knows how to be a genuine friend because she's very dismissive. So as this is all happening, Ashley and Stacy talk. Ashley throws some shade about her breath, which Angel did co-sign about Stacy's breath, so it might be true. She said there was some tart to it. So Stacy says to Ashley, I hope you can appreciate that even though you accused me of things that are not true, I still showed up. Ashley says, my issue with you is that why are you hiding things? You've been lying to me since day one. So then Stacy says, and you've been shady since day one. You are messy. So then Ashley says, you're a liar. Get out of here with your size 11 shoes. Gallop away. So they start to go back and forth with each other. They start to get very loud. And then Stacy's like, you're like a little imp. And then that was the end of the episode. It ended with Ashley and Stacy fighting, which I think it's such a dumb thing to fight about. It's like I said, my Stacy be lying? Yes, but you know what? I like her, Ashley. I think she has a much funnier personality than you do, if we're going to be honest. I get you need something to talk about because you're really not that relevant anymore. But you guys, this was a great episode. I truly enjoyed it. I will say this premiere was much better in my opinion than the Salt Lake City one that we just had a few weeks ago. I loved it, and I cannot wait for the rest of the season. And I just think it's going to get better and better because my favorite housewife of all time is going to be returning, Monique Samuels. I want y'all to let me know, though, in the comments, what did you think about the first episode? Did you enjoy it, first and foremost? But also, I want to hear y'all's take on the Wendy and Keiarna fight, because in a way I do understand Wendy's reaction, because some of the things, you know, when you're asking Keiarna, like, list the reasons why you think I'm being shady or whatever, they do sound a little ridiculous. But at the same time, I'm sure most of y'all know, if you have been following me, like I said, this is the 4th season I'm recapping of Potomac. I don't like Wendy. I'm just gonna be honest. I don't really think she's a great of a friend. So there might be some truth to what Keiarna is saying. But you guys, let me know your thoughts. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all next time. Y'all have a great one. Bye.